Well, hello and welcome to Gaming Misadventures. This is my Monday vlog, which I call Game Speak. There's not that many A's, just Game Speak. Tried to stress the Y, but didn't really work, did it? Today, I am going to talk about one of the games that's hot right now, but has inspired my creativity ever since I first discovered it, like a year, 2 years ago, whenever it was announced. It is Ryan Laukat's Sleeping Gods. My copy arrived. It was on my birthday last month, February, because it's March right now. And sadly, I've only had time to play through a little bit of it, a little sort of introductory portion of it, just running it solo. But it is definitely meeting everything I had hoped and dreamed and expected of it. It's so cool. If you love narrative games, this is it. And he's known, Ryan is known for that. But this game, if you are not familiar with it, it's all about the crew of a ship that's been stranded in a mysterious world. You're looking to discover the things you need to get back home, and it's basically sort of a big open sandbox game. You can take your ship and sail to all these different islands, have all sorts of different adventures, and it is all run, or all the story comes to you through quintessential, see if this focuses on you, narrative book, sort of choose your own adventure style. So this is certainly, nothing new for narrative games. The book bit, but with Living Starship, it's going to be a very similar sort of thing, narrative game where I don't know exactly how open sandboxy it will end up being, but we want it to be somewhat sandboxy, but because you will be playing as the crew of a starship, you will be sent on missions by high command. You won't necessarily have, thematically wouldn't have necessarily the same freedom to just go, hey, let's go flying around wherever we want. Though maybe we'll be able to structure it so you have some ability to do that. We'll see. But we're going to have a narrative game or a narrative storyline. So when you complete a diplomacy mission, you read paragraph 79 and you flip to 79. What we have exciting going on is that is also going to be run by an app. And we've met with a developer this weekend. We're sort of starting to lay the groundwork for that. The idea is maybe to save printing costs and box size and shipping weight, maybe the book or the game by default won't come with a narrative book. It's possible that'll be an optional side purchase because some people just love the tactile book and flipping through pages and reading a physical copy of things. I'm a little bit like that. But the app certainly will allow us to make sure the story branches and has all the different optional variations and branches of the story that we want. We're not limited by how many pieces of paper we can afford to print into the book that will still fit in the box and that will still not weigh 17 pounds and you take one entire container per on a ship from China. So doing something digitally certainly opens up the realm of complexity for the storyline a fair amount because it's just digital code that'll sit in the app. And so we'll see whether we'll have digital and analog, only have digital, only have analog, probably not only analog. But that is what we're working on. So I'm excited about that. And we already got, we've had story ideas for a long time ago. Now I can see we can thread all these together with an app. Because what if your crew is motivated by power, and you succeed at the diplomacy mission using your motivation of power, but really, so it's a succeed, fail forward. You'll rarely actually fail at missions, or if you perceive what you has done has failed, you'll continue on. The story will continue. It might just take you to branch C instead of branches A or B. If you succeed with power or acquisition, awesome. But if you fail with power, it takes you off a different direction. That maybe succeeding at the exact same diplomacy mission with a benevolence motivation, a crew that's motivated by benevolence, would have taken you to path C anyway. So I think the digital side certainly opens up a lot of that without adding additional cost of printed production. The other thing about sleeping games, sleeping gods, that I really like, and that what has inspired me ever since it was first announced, it was blogged about, I think, by Ryan himself, was this sort of combat and encounter system that's built into this. What you have here is a couple sort of minotaur creatures, and when you encounter them, they're two creatures that you have to be doing damage to, and you'll be putting damage tokens orthogonally on these cards. And when you cover up all of their hearts, that creature is defeated and removed from combat. But if at the end of your turn you've only succeeded in covering up those three, you've left this little activation symbol so they do some damage back to you. And so I just really love this idea of, until you're able to cover up all of this stuff, and because you can't place diagonally, sometimes, well, I can only place two pieces, and so do go there and there. And I'd really want to do, it makes for really rich decision making, I think. And so what we're going to be doing, at least as of this moment, March 2021, similar idea, but because we have Living Starship as a roll and write game, and we're utilizing polyominoes, it'll be a similar sort of idea. So maybe the object of this particular unnamed mission is to be able to, for your crew to roll their dice and activate their polyominoes. And the object of this will be to put your polyominoes onto the board in such a way as to surround and cut off the things you're trying to do. If this were a diplomacy mission, maybe these are the points you need to get across to the ambassador to persuade them to join your cause or change their tactics, or whatever the diplomacy mission is. So if your crew gets to roll the dice, and they needed like a 1 and a 2 and a 4 and a 5, so they've done all their dice manipulation, gotten that 5 and that 4 and that 2 and the 1. So now they can enter into the board, and the polyominoes will only be able to enter in one direction, and require other it will require other uses of cards and activated abilities. If you wanted to rotate it to the left or the right, or flip it around, you'll never be able to flip it mirror image, because for every image that has a mirror where it's relative, there's another polyomino card that you will be able to acquire in order to use that. But if they get their 5, their 4, and their 2 and the 1, and that's a slide onto the board, entering from a side, they'd be able to put it there. And if this needed to be a 4 and a 2 and a 2 and a 0, they roll their dice. Maybe you've got a certain amount of time, you've got a certain number of turns you have to complete all this in. So now this can be moved in at that angle. You have to spend a different ability card maybe to turn it that way, but it has to still be attached orthogonally to an existing polyomino that you have entered onto your grid. For maybe after every polyomino you enter, for every one of these things that isn't covered up and surrounded, possibly it's doing something negative to you, maybe it's a little tug of war, you're trying to move a token to your side of a track, and then for every time one of these isn't surrounded, maybe they're moving it back their space once. Then roll your dice, get this one put in, and you could attach it. I just picked these shapes out randomly, look at that. And then, ta-da, they would have accomplished that portion of the mission successfully. And so that whole idea of having to cover up or surround, or we've got all sorts of different permutations of how to work this grid, putting your polyominoes onto it. But meanwhile, when things aren't covered up or surrounded, they're doing things back to you, just like in Sleeping Gods with these, with their monster encounters. It's a really rich and surprisingly robust system, I think, for what we're doing, with a whole bunch of variation we can throw in onto it. So those are some things about Sleeping Gods that have inspired me and have affected how I'm approaching the Living Starship game. And not to mention of which what I love about it is you've got this crew of characters, and you have to manage all of them, all 8 of them. Is it? I've already forgotten. It's only been like a week and a half since I last played. However many characters there are, 8 or 10 characters plus the captain. I think we're going to be having a captain token, your captain character card you pass around, so keep track of first player if and when first player order matters. But you have to manage the entire crew, whether it's 1 player or 4 players playing the game. That'll be the same thing we've got going on in Living Starship, even though it's not a small crew. It'll be reflective of a much larger crew, with to begin with, several dozen plus your own player characters. Several, meaning 2. It's not several, it's a couple dozen, 2 dozen. So those are the things about Sleeping Gods that have inspired and influenced what we're working on for Living Starship currently. So thank you for tuning in to Game Speak this week, where sometimes I chat about my game design, sometimes I chat about just games I like, or sometimes I just chat. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.